All set?
That's for,
Yes?
Yes.
All right, we'll begin tonight's meeting. I apologize for the delay, and I thank everyone for their patience. Please stand for tonight's prayer. God our Father, we are all your servants. We trust in your mercy and love. We trust also in your guidance. Direct the meetings of this council of North College Hill to make good decisions for all of the people who live in our city. Give the members of this council wisdom and insight to know what is best for our city. Help us to be fair and just in all of our decisions. Bless us to do the very best we can. With your help and guidance, we pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Now we'll say the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What'd you say? Yes. Can't put your purse on the floor.
Again, I apologize for the delay in our start time, and I appreciate everyone's patience in the matter. We'll now do the roll call. Ms. Zorb, here. Ms. Gaston?
Here.
Ms. Chichester?
Here.
Ms. Alexander?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
here.
Ms. Underwood?
Here.
Next up, we have tonight's agenda.
Ms. Orr,
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
I would like to make a motion to amend the agenda for tonight.
Madam Zorb, I second that.
Can you explain the amendment, the
Yes.
change you want to make?
I would like to hold off on the executive session for the 2025 salary ordinance.
So your motion is to remove the executive session from the agenda?
That is correct.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor from Ms. Chichester, a second from Ms. Gaston, to remove the executive session from tonight's from tonight's agenda. Now I'll call the roll. Ms. Zorb? Yes. It's so weird.
Throwing me
I don't know how else to do it. Ms. Gaston?
Yes.
Ms. Chichester?
Yes.
Ms. Alexander?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. I need a motion to accept the agenda.
I would like to have Ms. Zorb, I would like to make a motion to accept the Madam President Zorb.
All right,
I'd like the motion to accept the agenda
as amended.
as amended, correct.
Madam President,
I had Mr. Wilson first.
I'd like to second that motion. Stop playing with me.
I have a motion from Ms. Chichester and a second from Mr. Wilson to accept tonight's agenda as amended. Roll call. Ms. Zorb? Yes. Ms. Gaston?
Yes.
Ms. Chichester?
Yes.
Ms. Alexander?
yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, so we'll then move into the agenda, which is tonight's budget review for the 2025 year for the city of North College Hill.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe everyone has a updated copy of the spreadsheet of the 2025 budget in front of them? If not, I do have another draft here. I think I have one more draft. Sure. Sorry. No, that was my last one. Sorry. So we are going to be beginning with the general fund for the police department. And what you will see, typically there are actuals. We want to do a typical 5-year projection. You have the actuals for 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Also provided is the 2024 budget and the 2024 actual. Next column, we have the department head proposals. And because this is an executive budget, you have the mayor's recommendations. We have 4 salaries. The proposed, the actual was $959,339 and some cents. The proposal from the department head was $1,169,349. There were no adjustments. The recommendation remains the same. There is a note that says add an 18th officer. That number does not support, unfortunately, an 18th officer.
Madam Chair.
Mayor Nichols.
If Chief Cheney could give a brief summary on how much that particular salary would be. Because overall, adding the 18th officer is adding an employee, and that would be up to council, whether or not that employee is added, as council determines the numbers of employees and their salaries.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that. Could you?
I just asked Chief Cheney if he could give us a brief detail of how much he thought that particular salary might be for that 18th officer. Are you looking for, it's full-time?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President.
Sorry, I was going to call you 3 different titles. Can Interim Chief Cheney reply first, or do you have a?
So the starting salary, if we brought someone in at starting, would be 63. If we brought a lateral in at top out, which generally we do not, because we don't generally get somebody with that much experience. Generally, a lateral comes in at grade 2 or grade 3, which would either be 75 or 78, just straight salary. Now, the one purpose for the 18th position is to do the neighborhood resource officer, which we've talked about, that would help with code enforcement and help with going after the properties that are having issues, collecting the fees for the rental properties and such, plus it would be able to assist the road patrol with some of the tasks that they get stuck with, mainly like parking complaints, which takes up a big portion of just the regular road guys' time. The other reason, quite frankly, is we are severely short-staffed, regardless of having an 18th officer. At some point, the city and council and myself have got to come up with a comprehensive plan for the agency and what it looks like going forward. We currently only have 17 officers. Our run totals for the year excuse me, I think someone else took my docket. So just to give you some examples, with October, November, December's numbers not equated to this yet, we were at 4,791 runs for the police department. And that is just dispatched runs. That does not count the runs that our officers create themselves with traffic stops, business checks. If a call comes into the station and they go on that run and they put themselves out, the county does not charge us for that. That is just charged runs, which is $4,700. To give you an example, City of Blue Ash. Now, I understand we do not have Blue Ash money. I get that. But the City of Blue Ash has 4,600 runs, and they have 43 police officers. We have 17. City of Cheviot has 21 police officers, and they're only at 4,200 runs. Evendale has 23 officers, 1,800 runs for the year. Our numbers reflect what is also reflected in our overage of overtime. Our guys and girls are being worked to death because we don't have enough staffing. So planning, I'm looking at a 5-year plan. Year one would be 25, which would be adding an 18th officer that would do the neighborhood resource stuff, free up our guys from doing some of the stuff that they do, that they could take care of. So.
Chief Cheney, there's something in your numbers that I'm a little confused by. So you're saying that the numbers that you quoted us from Hamilton County don't include the items that the officers find, the issues that they find on their own?
I just didn't bring that.
Right. But where I'm going with that is that's also, so those are the items that this new position would take care of, but then that wouldn't diminish the calls because that's not taking those off the plate.
Correct. It's not going to diminish these calls, no.
Right, so your officers are still going to be overworked.
That's why I'm saying this is step one of a 5-year plan to help us increase our staffing.
Okay. So to be clear, this number, this 1,169,000 does not include that 18th officer. Is that correct?
When I submitted mine, I thought it did because when I did my plan, I drastically cut the part-time budget from last year, which was like 108. Last year's part-time budget was $108,000. I proposed it to go to 60. I only have 2 part-time officers. One is my property room guy who averages about 50 hours a paycheck, and the other guy may work 1 day a week or 1 day a month.
So this does include the 18th officer. Is that what I heard?
Not in my recommendation, it doesn't. Or that number is rounded up from the actual 2024, Madam President.
Okay. It sounds like we have some numbers to crunch there. I'm hearing 2 different answers.
You're hearing 2 different answers because there are 2 different reasons why the number is the same. My reason is different from his.
Madam President,
Mr. Wilson?
can we hear her reason?
Oh, I'm sorry. So my reason is because if you look at the 2024 actuals, it is very close to what he proposed. So that gives room, and I don't typically like to budget exactly to an actual. So that gives room for typically a 3% difference. Okay to move on?
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, did you still have a question from before?
Nah, he answered it.
Okay. Mr. Go ahead.
For the sake of time, I will go through the numbers quickly, and if you have a question, I'd be more than happy to stop at that point. It looks like for the full-time salaries clerk, the proposed amount is probably closer to what should be recommended because I didn't have the information that there will be an increase per the agreement, the bargaining agreement for January 1st. So again, going from the actuals, going into looking what her actual salary is, my recommendation was based on that. However, it does need to reflect the department head, so I would recommend that we do increase that to the $56,492.80, taking that into consideration. Moving to part-time salaries. Don't believe that there was, we took that down just a bit, for ease of the overall budget number, from 60,000 to 50. Part-time clerical, that is per the recommendation now of the department head that we remove that line item. Chief Cheney has expressed that he would rather see a police administrative assistant as opposed to part-time weekend clerk. Giving room, as you can see, I did not make a recommendation of that position, but that gives room for that position of the $56,492.80 when you take into consideration that the overtime is decreased from the actual $162,091.95 to the $85,000. So when you remove the one line item, decrease the other one, you've got room actually to bring that other much needed person in, as opposed to employing someone on part-time on the weekend. And that's our recommendation.
So I'm confused. So the new position, the police administrative assistant, they're going to work the weekends and pick up the overtime?
So we want, okay, I'll let you explain.
No, they would just be a new position created, get rid of the weekend part-time. We don't have weekend part-time clerks as we're
Who
running
answers the-
business now.
I thought somebody answered the phones on the
We do,
nights
the
and
officers do, the senior officer does, carries the cell phone. So when they're available, they answer it. If not, then the call at some point goes to the county.
weekends. We did have clerks, right?
We haven't had part-time weekend clerks since I've been here, 9 years. We've had some part-time evening clerks, but we haven't had those for quite a while either. Part of the problem there is there's no salary for them, so I think the previous chief was paying them like $12, $13 an hour, and who are you going to get to come do that when you can go to McDonald's and make 20?
Yeah, I mean, we have that position on the salary ordinance. So I didn't know it wasn't being filled.
Yeah, it hasn't been filled for a long time.
Because we even increased it,
This the part-time clerical that y'all talking about?
the part-time clerk.
This one right here, yeah. The one that says weekend.
Yeah, right, yeah.
All right,
Madam President.
Mr. Wilson,
So, my
please
question,
speak into the microphone.
so my question is, are we getting rid
Go
of
ahead.
that position and adding a new one? I mean, help me understand, what are you doing with this?
So we are one of the few agencies that does not have an actual full-time police clerk that not, or I shouldn't say police clerk, I should say a police administrative assistant that assists with the police administration, so like the lieutenants, sergeants, chiefs, get the daily tasks done. The police clerk, our police clerk answers the phone all day long and does the warrants and recites and everything like that. She has no time to be an administrative assistant, and we're one of the few agencies that doesn't have this. I understand it's a new position. I'm just trying to catch us up to the times and make us what we need to be.
Madam President,
Ms. Chichester?
so Chief Cheney, just want to reiterate for.
Yes, ma'am.
We are getting rid of the part-time clerk line, and then we're going to replace that with the administrative assistant.
That would be my preference, yes, ma'am. And this,
That's all. I
now
just
the
wanted to
salary,
clarify.
so I can explain a little bit more for you guys. The salary I put in, because we're creating this position, I would imagine ordinance-wise and civil service-wise, it would have to fall under the union contract with the police clerk. Now, I put it at the top pay, which is 56. I highly doubt we would start someone at the top pay.
Right.
Bottom pay is 45. So there would be some, obviously, adjustment to that at some point, potentially, if it was approved. So one of the reasons why I'm looking at this, we have to look at, we obviously were kicked out of the Ohio Collaborative for reasons I won't go into, but we were. Part of it is to have 14 policies and procedures have to be in place to meet part of this collaborative. The state is also talking about going to this blue line accreditation, which then your agency is going to have to meet 35 of your policies and procedures are going to have to meet these guidelines. We literally just signed on with Lexipol. I had our first meeting last week to start rebuilding our policies and procedures for the entire agency. That is a 14-month process. And basically what they do is every 2 weeks or every week, I meet with them. They give me 5 to 8 policies that I have to review and either recommend changes or recommend it to stay the same. And then the following week, it starts over. So this is a very time-consuming process. So right now, because of the position we're in, there's only myself and Lieutenant Engelbert to do this. Besides, I'm still doing my lieutenant duties from before, plus all the chief duties, and then she's taking over the other 2 lieutenant duties besides her own. So we are stretched very thin.
So with that, do you envision this 85,000 for police overtime diminishing or increasing?
I would love for it to decrease at some point, but I mean,
In the year
technically,
2025, if you had a crystal ball in the year 2025, what are you going to see?
I would say it would probably diminish from what it is now, but I can't guarantee that it'll diminish that much. I honestly don't know. I mean, like Lieutenant Engelbert is now out on light duty. She hurt her shoulder. She goes to the orthopedic on
Please don't
Wednesday.
reveal too much of her information,
But-
please.
So now that puts that squad back to 2 people instead of 3. So if someone takes off or someone calls in sick, it creates overtime. We have literally, the last month, first time in probably a year and a half, 2 years, that 3 of the 4 shifts were fully staffed.
Do you feel comfortable with that discussion that we can move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next line is Ohio Police and Fire Pension. I'd like to draw your attention to the 2024 budget and the 2023 actual. The 2023 actual is near $300,000, whereas the 2024 budget is $150,000. I'd like to leave it at $160,000 because the goal is to bring before you appropriations quarterly. So if I have the $160,000 appropriated, I can come back to you on a quarterly basis when we're nearing that that dollar amount, knowing that we may need to increase it. So that's the only reason why, because I really don't have a good handle on what the OP&F true number would be, because there's such a vast difference between what was budgeted in 2024 and the actual of 2023. I felt safe to leave it at 160 with the option of coming back for an appropriation. Same thing with the Ohio OPERS, which, as you can see, is not really as vastly different as the OP&F. but still would like to be able to come back for that. Now, FICA is a percentage, and you do see that is budgeted to pretty much to the dollar amount of what would be typically expected in a year. Same thing for workers' compensation. You'll see this across the board, across all departments, that's pretty much those three are, I should say, FICA and workers' comp don't vary too much from department to department. Medical insurance, there was a 7% increase. Life insurance, that is a additional pickup for the police department. Police ammunition, I left that the same as what was proposed. Uniform and clothing, we had to take that down a bit to fit within the bottom line. Same was for the new hire costs, hoping that we can work within a lowered amount. Nothing was asked from the department head, so we didn't budget anything for the next three items. Communication maintenance. This is actually something that Chief Cheney can explain better than I can. I understand that this is new equipment with a possible reimbursement. So we left that the same.
Madam President,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that was actually one of the things I had highlighted, because I'm looking like in the previous years, you know, it's 1,000 and change, 5,000, 2,000, and then now the proposed is 45,000. Can we explain
So
that
the county
jump?
is, our MDCs that are in our cars, we have 8 of them. So we have 8 cruisers, 8
What
cars.
is it, MDC?
It's our mobile data computer. So it's our computer that's in our car. The county is phasing out what we have now, so we have no choice to buy new ones. This is a one-time purchase that will last. The last ones, the ones we're on now, we're at the 10-year cycle of them. So when we do this, it'll be for 10 years. Now, I budgeted high. There is negotiations between Hamilton County Chiefs of Police and the Hamilton County Commissioner's Office. It has not been approved, but the proposal is that the county will pay for half the cost of the MDCs. So this number would basically go from 45 to about 28. Each MDC is about $5,000 a piece. So the proposal is to have the cities or townships only pay about $2,600 of that, but it hasn't been approved yet. So I don't want to, when I made my budget, I didn't want to say, yes, they're going to approve it, and then turn around, and if the county commissioners don't approve it, then we're short the money.
When will you know, Chief, the results of whether?
Hopefully the next Chiefs meeting, which will be the first Wednesday of December. So I'm not sure the exact date, but
Okay, thank you.
yep.
So police towing, I believe that to be an expense that is occurred from the tow lot, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We did take that down just a bit. And then cell phones and pagers.
I'm sorry, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Interim Chief Cheney, I stumble on your title every time. I apologize.
You're fine.
The towing, like, the car that gets towed, we get reimbursed for that, right?
So we tow a car, the owner comes in and pays the tow fee and pays the storage fee. The tow bill is $175. When they pay us, then each month we reconcile the bill with the tow company, and that's where this money comes from, is us reimbursing or sending that money to the tow company that they charge us. And then we keep, obviously, the funds for the storage fee. Any cars that we end up selling for the year, we keep the money for that. But from my understanding, that bank hasn't been used yet, and there's quite a bit of money in it.
So I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to say it a little differently. So this 35,000 that's in this line item, it's listed as a debt for the city, but essentially it gets paid back from the people that are being towed.
Correct.
So it's not a true hit to our budget because we will get that money back. Is
Correct.
that- Okay. All right.
So they pay us, and then we turn around and pay every month, like Ingalls Towing.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Madam President,
Ms. Helig.
so in that conversation, you said that we actually pay the tow company.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that's a debt, correct?
Correct.
So I guess that was my confusion.
So my
because I
understanding
thought
how
that
it works, and I'm-
$35,000 was the debt that we pay the tow company.
Correct. Yeah.
So
So
it's-
what? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, listening to what Ms. Zorb said, we get reimbursed from the person who comes and pays. But there's a separate bill that we have to pay to the tow company. So where does that lie
So
in all of this?
So let's say my car
it's
gets
kind of
towed.
complicated.
My
So
car gets towed. And
your
what
car gets
happens?
towed.
I get a bill.
We call Ingalls Towing. Ingalls comes and tows your car, puts it in a tow lot. That person will come, say you come the very next day. You pay the 1-day storage, which is $25, and you pay the tow fee, which is $175. You give us $200. At the end of the month, when we process the bills for all the tows, say if Ingalls has had 4 tows, so that's what, $425 roughly, then I will do a rec out of this line item and take the $425, so Ms. Janetta can then reimburse them. Now, we've gotten the money from them, but it doesn't go back into this. It goes into a, what's the right term, Ms. Janetta?
Receipts? It comes into
Yeah,
receipts.
like a receipt, but it's,
So if I
my
can-
understanding, we can't spend that money until the following year because it's money that's been taken in. We can't put it back in the account. It has to wait till the next year, which, from my understanding, we have, the money that goes in that we've been collecting has never been dispersed yet.
Yeah, well, it is a revenue, and we are talking about expenses or expenditures. So when we are presented with those invoices, we do have to have a line item to pay from. So this is simply making it possible for us to pay the bills. So when the money comes back in, it's an offset. However, it's in the revenue. So you wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't, just because we're getting money in, I wouldn't cancel out this expense because we do have to pay it. And I do have to have a line to pay from. That takes us to cell phones and pagers. This line is rather high, but it's in keeping with the actual for 2021. There is actually the $2,500 that was spent in 2020 and the $4,000 actuals for 2021. I am not familiar, unless this is speaking with just Verizon and not,
Yeah, that's
No.
all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we have 4 cell phones for us.
okay, so this is literal cell phones.
Yes, ma'am.
This line could probably go down. This can be adjusted way down.
Well, I guess my confusion is we've only spent $642 to date this year. So that would mean that there's another over $3,000 to spend on cell phones
I
in
don't
a-
pay,
in a month
that
and a
bill
half?
doesn't come to me. So I don't ever see it and pay it. It's, I think, comes something directly to the finance department.
Yeah, I gave you what my reasoning was for leaving it at 4,000, but I also said that it could come down.
So bring it down to
I
$700?
would say, no, not 700. I wouldn't even say 2. I would say $1,000, $1,500 would probably be more than enough to pay that.
I agree.
Tell me that number again.
No more than $1,500 for cell phones. I don't have anything to report for the new software. That would be Interim Chief Cheney.
Yes.
That's a huge.
So a big chunk of that is our Lexapol software that we just went to, which is quite expensive. It's about $12,000 a year, but they are the industry standard. They basically, besides building all our policies and procedures now, anything that is judged on federally, so like any federal court case that comes out that could affect your policies and procedures, anything statewide, they will adjust your policy and procedure for you so that way you meet the standards. Plus, it also, we get to test every officer on their policies and procedures. We get to, all our training will go through there. It's a very comprehensive program. We are just now starting the build process. But it is expensive.
Madam Chairperson,
Yes, Mr. Davis.
so if you said it's $12K a year, now why do we have it allocated for 20 this year? Is that like a
Because I have
implementation?
additional items in there as well. I just haven't gotten to that.
Okay.
So also in there, we have our software that does all our scheduling, which is Power DMS, which is $2,500. And then we have Vector Solutions software that has two different aspects in it. Has a check it program, that's what it's called, where it'll keep all our inventory for everything we have now. Plus it'll keep all the maintenance for all our vehicles. One of the problems that we've had for the last several years is the maintenance of our vehicles. This will enable us to track all the maintenance. Since we're getting new cruisers, what I intend to do, which we've never done before, is if a Durango's at 25 or 30,000 miles and it requires a radiator flush, we are going to do that in the effort to then hopefully extend the life of the vehicles. And so we are not then making $4,000 engine changes or $4,000 on a new transmission for the vehicle. This program will literally then talk to Public Works, who does most of our minor. So anytime the vehicle needs a oil change, for say, it will send Dave Huffman an email saying, hey, this vehicle is due for an oil change. We can then just schedule the oil change and it'll be done. Super comprehensive. Plus, it will track all our weapons maintenance, all the supplies we use for criminal investigations, crime scenes, all of that. So all our inventory will go in there. And plus, we have the dashboard, which is pretty cool, but can't show you here.
So I believe the remaining of the budget that was proposed were actually taken down a bit, and again, to accommodate the bottom line of the general fund. The proposed amounts for equipment repair and maintenance went down for $500. Printing and reproduction, those costs were reduced. Copier maintenance, again, slightly reduced.
I have a question about that.
Mhm.
In 2023, the actual for that copier was only $68, and now it's $4,000.
Yeah, but if you'll notice that the actual for 2024.
And we have one. I don't,
Yeah,
that's a bill I don't see. So,
yeah, the actual for 2024 is more or less what we can go from as opposed to 2023.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Nick.
I do recall that during that time, I believe that there was an issue with the copier that they had, and so they got another one.
we did get a new copier like a year or two ago, yes.
Makes sense.
I do know that we are paying U.S. Bank for leases for copiers. And so,
Madam
weapons,
President,
Mr. Wilson?
could you repeat that, Ms. Janelle?
we pay for our copiers monthly. There's a lease
Huh?
for the copiers.
The copiers are leased. We don't outright own them. Sorry.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yes, it did.
Or? Okay, weapons maintenance, based on the 2024 actual, we did lower that as opposed to what the proposal amount was. Criminal investigation fees, we also lowered based on the actual. And the same goes for criminal investigation equipment, IT equipment and supplies. Incidentals remain the same. Membership looks like it's about the same across the board, just slightly higher. He did not request anything for ammunition. I believe there's another line item for that. Office supplies, we had to decrease that a bit. And then operating expenses. The equipment capital, I believe that there are two cruisers that have lease payments on them.
Yeah, that's a different, I think that's in the debt lease.
We want to purchase.
We want to purchase.
Oh, this is the purchase, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Purchase outright for the 125.
Correct.
Okay. The other one, yes, I do see that's the $30,000 that we talked about on the one lease. That concludes the general fund for the police department.
I would like to back us up just a tad to the vehicle fuel and oil line. It looks like it was budgeted in 2024, almost 22,000. The actual for 2024 was almost 3,000, but then there's a note that says it was moved from the levy to the general fund, which means it should be here, and I don't see anything for 2025. So that's confusing to me.
I don't know where that money go. I never see that bill. Problem with that portion is we all, police, fire, public works, all pump from the same
It is a
tank.
percentage, I believe, across 3 departments. However, there were talks about getting a piece of equipment added onto the fuel pump so that I would be able to tell which was actual usage on that. Because with it now, there's just a blanket percentage across 3 departments without knowing what the actual usage is per department. Unless it's diesel, I don't think every department uses diesel. That's easier to track. But to just say 35% of the bill is probably not an accurate amount to budget from, so.
But I guess my point is there's nothing in the budget for police,
Madam President.
for vehicle fuel in 2025.
Madam President.
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
I think what she's saying is they removed it from the police department's budget and into the general fund because we can't say 3,000, just throwing out a number, is responsible for the police departments when the whole Public Works, Fire Department, and the police department use it. So it's only fair that we maintain it in the general fund versus charging that department solely or dividing it up, because maybe the fire department's using 50%, Public
Correct.
Works, 25%, and PD 25, just throwing out random numbers. These aren't actuals. So that's why it's removed completely, and it says it's moved to the general fund to balance. So that way, he's not taking part of his budget for just the fuel.
And I hear what you're saying. But,
You want a number, so.
no, that's not even where I'm going either. So, first of all, the part of the police department budget that we're referring to is paid for by the general fund, so there's that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is fire's still getting paid for fuel. If you look in the fire budget, it's still paying for gas. So, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. It could be diesel versus, I don't think,
Because you guys know, or does she know?
Madam
President.
Chair,
So, I mean, we're up here speculating, and I would like to know
I'm
an
actually
answer and not
looking-
speculation.
I'm actually looking.
Okay.
Madam Chair, which number are you referring to with fire? Which line item number?
It's on the fire,
211-102-524-210.
Right. Well,
there you go.
Repeat
Which
that
one?
number
I'm
again for
sorry.
me, somebody.
It's on the fire tab, it's line item 50 of the fire tab.
If you can give me a line number, a fund number.
211.102.524.210.
0.
It has $23,000 in it.
From the fire equipment. Correct.
That's grant, Madam President, that's grant expenses from
No, it's not.
22. The paperwork I shows nothing for fire and
Well, the document that she sent us does.
Madam President.
You're referring for the fire equipment
looking at the
fund?
wrong thing.
Yeah. You're saying 211-102-52. Is it 42?
Yes.
52 or 42?
524210. It's in the fire equipment fund.
oh. Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I circled it.
Vehicle, fuel, and oil.
Madam Chair,
It's just a,
Yes, Ms. Underwood?
so Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
I'm looking, what I see is if you look at, when we look at fire, under Department 102, I see vehicle, fuel, and oil, and that line has nothing on it,
Yeah.
right? And then the fire equipment line is different. First of all of these numbers are given to you by the department heads. Am I correct on that? Mm-hmm. So can we just, Chief Plackey, would you mind coming and sitting by a microphone for us, please?
I will also point out that in Public Works, there's also a charge for vehicle, fuel, and oil, and it's $14,000.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, okay? I'm just trying to, if it's a number and it's fire, I feel like we should ask you. So if you look under, like, Department 102 Fire, Vehicle, Fuel, and Oil, that line is blank. But then if you look under Fire Equipment, it has Vehicle, Fuel, and Oil, and that line has a number on it. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Can you explain that to us?
As far as I know, that is where we draw our fuel expenses from, is from the fire equipment fund.
And is that the same thing as that other fund up at the top?
Yes, I believe it would be the same. I mean, it's.
So one fund
vehicle,
is the
fuel, and
general
oil.
fund. And one is the fire equipment fund. That's the difference.
Is that
What was the
right?
question?
I'm just wondering why those two numbers are different.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Some of these line items are new to me in this 101 account.
Okay.
So, yeah,
And Ms. Underwood, we don't see the bills ever for our fuel. It never comes to us, so.
So you guys, and again, I don't know. So you guys have a gas pump back there or
Yes,
something?
ma'am. We have a gas pump. We go and
okay.
fill out, and then that's all processed through the finance department. I never see a bill for it.
And everybody, you goes back and that's why you guys drive behind that building?
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Fuel up your vehicles?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam
Okay.
President.
Are you finished with Ms. Underwood?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Ms. Chichester?
Yeah. So I'm just asking for clarification. Is it safe to say diesel tends to cost more than regular fuel, and that possibly fire trucks, ambulances tend to use more fuel than
I can't answer that because I don't have the numbers in front of me. There's no
Okay.
way to measure it.
Yeah.
So it is that the percentage of diesel is split typically between public works and fire.
Absolutely.
The regular gas only is what's used by the police department, and that's the portion of the bill that they alone pay. But even that it's split between the
Still
three.
utilized
at a
with our
percentage
pickup
rate.
trucks.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm in the process of really kind of honing down on what those actuals are.
Okay.
And I know that there is a percent, there should be an actual for 2024. However, I just don't think that is an actual representation of actual usage.
So, Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
and I'm asking for clarification of your question. I'm trying to word it. How would you like to see that, or was your question answered with why the fire department has a fuel line budget and the police department does not?
There were a lot of questions in there. I'm going to say my questions were not, I don't have a clear explanation as to why the 2024 budget for the police lists almost $22,000 for fuel. The 2024 actual is only $3,000, and for 2025, it's zero. So the differences there are, in my personal opinion, very drastic differences, and I don't follow where that 22,000 went. I mean, I looked over on, there's something called community environment, and that now has $3,000 for vehicle fuel and oil. I don't know what that is. We're not there yet, so I don't even want to bring it up yet. But I was thinking maybe that's the $3,000 from the police. I don't know. It's all,
Madam Chair,
yes, Mayor Nichols.
if I could, if you look over, if I'm looking at the history, last year, the budget for 2024 was the first year that, from the police 101, that fuel was budgeted for. When I go to the levy for police, that's where it is. If you look at the police levy, that's where their fuel, I missed the page. Okay, it's 301, 101, 524, 210. If you look at the trend, every year that's where it was budgeted, with the exception of 24, it's on that other line, if I'm reading the lines correctly. I'm sorry. And then for the fire, the trend has been that it has come out of their fire equipment, not out of the regular general fund line. So if you look at the fire, 101, 102, 524, 210, it's never been appropriated. It's always come out of their fire equipment fund. So you guys passed the budget last year for the vehicle fuel at 21,914 out of the police general. When, as I stated before, if you look at the trend, it was never there. It was always in the levy. So I just want to make this point, this statement, whether it's a point or not. If council desires the recommendation to have all of them put into the general fund and to split it, then we would do that. But looking over at trends, it has not been in their regular 101 fund. It's been in the levy. They paid fuel from the levy.
So
and the fires paid it from the fire equipment.
my only point in bringing that up is that's a note that was on the document, and I didn't create, I mean, that was the way the note was given to us.
I understand.
And it says moved from the levy
It says moved
to
from.
the general fund
Yeah,
to
that should
balance
have
the
been-
levy
that
to
should
the
have been
auditors.
removed.
That should have been removed, that note.
Okay. Well, that's where my
I understand.
confusion started, because I was trying to find it somewhere in the general fund, because it says it was moved from the levy to the general
general
fund. So I'm
fund.
trying to find it in the general fund, and I couldn't find it. So that sent me on a wild goose chase across every department.
That's understandable.
And Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Chichester?
I just want to note, before Ms. Nichols spoke, the 22,000 wasn't an actual number, it was just the budgeted for 2024. We actually only spent the 2788.
I don't disagree with that.
No, I just
But
wanted to
I'm-
say for record clarification, that's it. That's it.
It would be surprising to me that a department head could be that far off on their estimate for fuel.
Well, we have to budget and account for the economy. If fuel prices go up, we have to pay whatever, prices and fees and delivery, whatever they set. So we budget for that incidentals as well. Am I correct in saying that, Chief Cheney?
Well,
I feel very confident that you don't only spend that you spend more than $3,000
I would say
a year on
yes.
fuel.
Like I said, though, I never have seen a bill since I've been in this position. Oh, unfortunately, just
So maybe my question should
like
have
Ms.
been,
Chichester just stated.
Yes.
What was the company?
World Fuel?
Likens World Fuel literally just canceled our fuel contract. We weren't the only one. It's
Right.
area-wide. And we had to go with Wardway until we find someone else. And unfortunately, Wardway prices are market prices, so it's not a set price. So one delivery could be $1,000. The next delivery could be $600. It just depends on the price
Absolutely.
until we can find
a better
price.
But we have to shop
Yeah,
around for that.
so-
But until then, we're stuck.
Yeah, and this literally happened Wednesday to us. We were in the middle of a ceremony, and we got the email that they were canceling the contract.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Davis.
okay. And did we discuss line item 101.523-400, the professional service? That's another one where there's a very large variance. I'm just asking.
Can you repeat the line item, sir?
Yes, please.
523-400, professional service.
Yeah. Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Chichester?
I believe that was the training we talked about.
We talked about it. I just forget what.
Yeah, part of it's the training and software. We didn't.
I thought the software inventory.
It's in the
and
20,
training
yes,
thing
but
was-
we have. I mean, that's just part of it.
I thought that was part of. I thought that was it. I thought that's what we were discussing for 523-225. That's
Correct.
the 20K for that. This professional service is a different 20K.
Correct.
So who is that professional?
I would have to go back and pull my receipts on whatever
I
all
would
the
too.
stuff I
I do know that the
pulled
actuals
out.
are right at 15,000.
don't know if I brought.
If you'd like, I can provide that information on.
Yeah, in the sake of time,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
what line item is?
Or we can move forward. We can move forward as if y'all are looking it up.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Alexander.
I have a question for the, looks like debit service equipment. That's 101-525-300. Looks like 2023, it was like $10, and then there was a budget of 0, and then the actual was like 105,000, and now the rest of it is blank. What exactly is that? Debit service equipment.
It's just dead.
Debt. So, okay, can you, $10, 0, 105?
We paid off something. I believe it was something that we paid off. I'd have to get you that information as well.
Okay.
I'll have to run a detailed report on that item.
Okay.
And since we have Chief Cheney still with us, I thought we'd go on to the police levy fund.
I'm sorry, can I hold you for a quick second?
Sure.
I would like additional details on all of the debt service lines. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there 5? 3. There's 4 of them.
So there's only one line that's budgeted that's for a lease.
Well, I'm really looking at what we bought in 2024, and I guess my biggest question is, there's a principal payment, but no interest payment, and unless, it's not common to have a 0% loan, so I guess I'm curious why there wasn't any interest, but there was principal. Or maybe we did have a 0% loan. I just don't know. I'd just like to know if we did.
I can get that information for you.
No, we have 2 that are, that we didn't know. The bill just showed. 'Cause we never did. We had a lease.
I'd be more than happy to get that information for you.
Thank you so much.
That takes us to the police levy fund.
Can I clarify something quickly? When you look at this spreadsheet and the actuals, and it says a debt of 105 in the debt equipment services, that line we were talking about, when I ran, the last I ran, which just goes through December, or not December, excuse me, through October, that line item is only showing 21,000, which was the lease that myself and Ms. Janetta were not aware of until we got the bill in June. So we had to find a place to pull the money, and that's where she pulled it from. I don't understand where the 105, it makes no sense because it's not showing up on my year-to-date.
Tell me the number that you show again, 21?
The 101, 523, 300, or 525, sorry.
525, 300.
Yes, ma'am.
Where it has the 105,000 in it.
Correct.
But you're showing,
I'm only showing a negative of 21,000. Yeah, 991,000, which was the loan payment for a Charger, the lease payment for a Charger and a Tahoe that are combined. It's a one lump sum payment once a year.
okay.
So I don't know why there's a discrepancy in where on this spreadsheet that was presented today shows 105, because nothing's been spent like that, just to be clear.
Again, we can provide you with information on that. I'll run these reports for you.
Actually, the number you just mentioned is the exact number that's in the cruisers line, that's right below it.
Where's that?
Right below at 105.
Right below it.
It would be 526100.
I see 21,000.
Yeah. 21,990.
Yeah, the 21,991, it matches.
60.
Okay, so, okay. So the
We need
question,
to know what that entire 105,760
I
is.
don't, and without running a report, I wouldn't have no
Okay.
idea.
I understand.
But I certainly will get that.
All right, we are on to the police levy fund.
Yes, we are. I have a note that says, use this first in the salaries. And this is for the full-time professional salaries, 265,000. So, we will deplete this, this line item before we do go over to, any funds used in the, general fund.
So are you saying that the 42,000 actual is going to change?
For 2025, it will.
No, I'm talking about for the 2024.
No, that's not what I'm saying, no.
Okay.
I'm not gonna change any numbers for actuals for 2025, no. Or 2024, I should say. I'm saying that when the funds are depleted in this line item is when we will go to, the general fund for salaries.
Do you,
But that doesn't
Madam
mean
President?
use first.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Wilson.
do y'all have you got a timeline when that'll be depleted?
I'm sorry?
No, no
Okay.
timeline, no.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, did you hear my question?
I did not.
I asked her if they had a timeline. She said that this morning. I asked her if she had a timeline for it said once this, it says use first. So I was asking it, did they have an idea of when that'll be used up?
When it'd be used up.
before, yeah, before going over to the general fund.
Gotcha.
I believe we answered the question, the same premise applies for the OP and F and OPers, as well as the Medicare and the workers' compensation lines across departments. There is no additional life insurance coming out of the levy. There was no budgeted amount for ammunition coming from the levy. Uniforms had to be actually the same.
Ms. Anderson, can I hold you for a quick second?
Sure.
I just want to ask Chief Cheney if he's, I see the salary for that new position that you're requesting is coming out of the levy. Have we validated that there's wording in the levy that can accommodate that?
I think, I mean, quite honestly, I think there's money to accommodate all of it. The police department is still in the process of using the ARPA money. We have over $600,000 in ARPA money that's supposed to be slotted for police salaries that we're still being reimbursed for.
I guess what I'm asking is, the levy has a very specific criteria that the money can be used for. So does this new position fit within the levy? That's what I'm asking. It's not ARPA related. It's 100% levy related. If the money's coming out
I
of
thought
the
the
levy.
money was,
The way it's listed in here, it's coming out of the levy.
Because the new position is not budgeted for the general fund.
If it gets moved up to the police, the real police that comes from the
Right.
general fund, then that wouldn't be a concern, and you could use the ARPA money.
that's where I proposed it originally.
Okay,
I didn't put it in
okay.
police fund, or levy fund, sorry.
So this should, In your
That's where I would
opinion, you want
prefer,
this
in my
there.
opinion, yes, it should be there.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, yes, Ms. Chichester, sorry, my mind was.
Sure,
Right,
you were
right.
writing. That's fine. Ms. Janetta,
Yes.
can you just clarify why we put the new hire police officer under the levy versus the other fund?
Well, the general fund is it's depleted just about for, it's a very high percentage amount that the police department does pull on the general fund. So as much as possible, we want to make sure that we alleviate that from the general fund. And if there is money, if there's enough money in the levy to support a new position, then we can certainly plug it in there, which
And our,
Interim Chief Cheney and I did have a discussion before meeting with you that may even be an item that could be adjusted off the levy.
Yeah.
Because there is, you'll see once we get down to the bottom, there's just a slight deficit, so.
okay, I just want to make sure we gave clarification of why one versus the other. And under the levy guidelines, a higher paying the salary for a new police officer would be able to be covered under that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes, but this is not a police officer. This is a clerk.
It says new
No.
hire calls PO. I thought that PO stood for police officer. Am I incorrect?
It is police officer, isn't it? It is.
There would be,
You wanted an 18?
yes.
So clarify, this isn't for the administrative assistant, this is for the new police
I guess it
officer.
would be for the new police officer. I'm
No, I
sorry.
just wanted to ask for
No,
clarification.
I'm
'cause it had
confused
PO.
too, so,
Yes, okay.
So it sounds like we're all confused.
yeah,
Yes.
Let's just figure it out.
So that's why we ask questions.
yes.
So, under the I'm sorry, excuse me, under the police levy, the new hire calls dash PO stands for new hire police officer.
Yeah, and I
And
guess that
not-
would just be the PERS payment,
Yep, and not the administrative.
correct?
Gotcha. So then we are in compliance with the levy.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay, continue.
Where I left off at was, and that because this is levy dollars, it's heavily driven by the department head. I'm just making suggestions to make sure that we don't go over the levy dollars, and as you'll see at the bottom, there is a total amount attributed to the levy, which is the $534 and $534,839. So if any adjustments are made to what the department head recommended, it's because we want to stay underneath that amount that's deposited into the account. And again, Chief Cheney and I met briefly before we met tonight, and there is a $50,000 that we'll need to skim off in another area.
Perhaps that will be that new station CCT.
We talked about that.
We
talked
talked,
about that being.
so I budgeted it extremely high, because when we were doing the budgets, I hadn't had the 3 proposals in. The actual cost now would be more around 35.
I'm back to, is that listed as a valid charge under the levy? That's where my concern is. So we would need to know that.
Yeah,
That's all.
I don't, this is new to me, so I have
Gotcha.
to find out the rules.
So,
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
so Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
with the, and Interim Chief Cheney, excuse me, with the possibility of the MDCs possibly being covered by the county commissioners,
Correct.
and you budgeted high for the CCTs, that could cover the deficit that we actually have, the 50K, between those two?
Yes, ma'am. Plus, we haven't gotten there yet. The equipment capital needs some correction there. It's at 54. It should not be that high.
That's
Okay.
what you, that's what.
I know,
Okay.
But the MDCs are in the general fund
Correct.
police. And the CCT is in the levy police.
correct.
So they wouldn't offset.
Well, he would have to find somewhere to cut 50. So I'm just trying to avoid from,
Well, it would have to stay in the same fund. so-
right,
Right.
right.
The levy.
So you guys already met and you knew there's like a 50K
Correct.
deficit.
Correct, and
So where
we think
would
we
your-
can get there by cutting, the CCTV cost would actually be lower.
Okay.
The 54 will be lower. That is, so let me explain this one. It's an issue that was discovered last week where the previous chief had not paid some bills. We actually are like $17,000 behind in paying for our body worn cameras. While I was working on a body worn camera grant that we almost lost, that we'll make up, we are due to get about $32,000 that will help us offset this debt. But I don't have it yet. I'm still working to finalize it, but it's been approved by the state, so we will get it. I just got to get additional paperwork to them. In the process of doing that, I discovered that we had not paid 2023's bill, which is $8,500, and I found, obviously, the 24 bill, which comes every November, which is $8,500. The contract ends in 2025. It's another $8,500. Me and Miss Janetta talked. We discussed just putting it all into one line item. If the line item is approved, come January, we would pay the entire thing off, and we would not have that debt no longer.
Thank you, Chief Jane.
Yes. And the other portion of that is our flock cameras, which are $15,000 a year.
That concludes the police department, although we did not discuss mayor's court.
Sorry, Madam President, one more question.
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
So you don't anticipate, sir, having that 50,000 deficit after everything's said and done, correct?
No, ma'am, because like I said, 32,000, we are going to get 32,000 back. I'm not sure when the check will come
I get
because
it,
they
but
don't tell
we-
you. Sometimes it just randomly shows up.
Thank you for your work, sir.
Thank you.
Does council have any other questions?
Yes,
for
Madam
police?
President, one more.
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Okay. And last check, just making sure. Now, why is the equipment capital outlay in the levy fund for the lease of cruisers? Why is that not
That's-
redundant for
It,
the lease payment in the general fund?
that's a typo. It shouldn't have been there. That's a typo, sir.
Oh, so it should be in the general fund or it should be in the levy?
It should be in the general fund where we discussed it before. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, this line item is just for the
Okay.
paying
I
off
get
the
you. This is
tasers
what-
and the
okay,
flock
This is what
cameras.
moved from the, okay.
Correct.
I get you. I get
Yep.
it now. Because I remember that.
Any other police questions?
Nope.
All in, all done? We have some follow-ups that we'll expect to get. Other than that, I think you're out of the hot seat.
All right. Hopefully I did okay for my first time.
You did great. All right. Since our fire chief is sitting there, you want to go next?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, so beginning with the set part-time firefighter salaries. These actuals, I do want to point out, for 2024, were taken directly from Paycor. The actuals for the part-time firefighter plus the interim fire chief, did come to the amount of $285,058 actuals. There was also actual overtime of $120,379, again, coming straight from Paycor.
Ms. Anderson, could I hold you for a quick second?
Yes.
Sorry. Chief Cheney? My apologies. I noticed that we did not talk about the 703 mayor's court. Is that you?
I did bring that up.
That's not you?
No, I don't
Okay.
do anything with mayor's court, ma'am.
All right. It says given to Diane Tolley, and she's, okay. But you don't have anything to do with it?
No,
All right. Okay, then you're still free to go. Thank you.
Almost made it out.
Sorry. Please go ahead. I wanted to catch him before he ran out the door.
Madam Chair, did you have any questions about the mayor's court?
I will, but can we finish fire since we started it? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
The proposed amount of $678,262.95 from the department head was given to the finance department. However, what the budgeted amount includes, the recommended amount includes is the salary for the interim chief of the fire department, and also 14.5% of the full-time firefighter salaries. This line is dedicated to the part-time firefighters. However, we do recognize that the levy does not support the entire amount that was proposed by the interim chief of fire. So therefore, we moved 14.5% of that proposed amount to the general fund so that it did not deplete the fire levy.
I'm not sure I followed.
So the fire levy,
So can I try this in terms that I can understand? I'm sorry.
sure,
So the general fund fire was supposed to cover part-time salaries.
correct.
And according to the levy that the citizens passed, it was supposed to cover full-time salaries.
No.
Yes, absolutely.
What I
That's
have,
what the citizens passed.
the full-time salaries for
Yes.
the fire department, for
Yes.
full-time, that's not my understanding. But if that's the way it's supposed to be done, then I can move it that way.
You're saying the general fund?
No,
The
I
levy?
said the levy.
Okay.
The levy is supposed to be full-time.
Oh, that's the
We
way it
did not
is.
have full-time before the
Right,
levy.
the
We
levy
only
is for
had
full-time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about the general fund right now.
Yes,
So
Are you questioning the 14%?
that's where I got lost. Yes.
So I had to move 14% of the full-time firefighters out of the levy so that it did not deplete the levy into the general fund, or from, I should say, from the general fund. In other words, the general fund will be paying 14.5% of the full-time salaries just so that it doesn't deplete the levy.
So the levy does not have enough money to cover the cost of all of our full-time firefighters?
Does not. There's $1,500,000 that the levy receives. $1,500,000 and, no, wait, 1,000,000, am I looking at that right? $500,236. If I hadn't moved 14.5%, that $15,000 surplus they wouldn't have, and I don't recommend depleting any fund at any time.
Gotcha.
I guess the confusion on my face is I know how diligent previous Chief Fells was with the numbers, and it's very surprising to me that the fire levy doesn't cover the full-time salaries.
So the proposed full-time salaries by the interim fire chief was 900. If you look at the number for 302,
972.
Yes, $972,000. That's for the full-time wages, which is what it's for. The levy doesn't support that because there's only $1,500,000 that the levy brings in. If we were to pay that full amount, it would deplete the levy.
So there was no carryover in the levy?
Should have been.
I don't have history. I don't have carryover amounts in any of the funds. So if there are such funds carryover, that's something that I would have to be given information on. I don't have that.
I don't know who else would have it if it wasn't within your realm. I mean, I know
I'll get back
council
to you
wouldn't
on
have
it.
that. I mean, I was curious to know what our carryover is anticipated to be for the entire budget this year.
So those are the balances of those lines. Again, I'm not privy to what the carryover is, but I'm more than happy to get that information for you. I was given the budget at the last minute, so these numbers are, if there's a carryover, I'll find it and I'll make sure that it is.
You were given the budget by me at the last minute? Is that what you're saying?
That is not what I'm saying.
What do you mean by the last minute?
I was given the responsibility to complete the entire budget
Oh,
at the
I got you.
last
I
minute.
got you.
So as it stands right now, and if you would like, I can certainly move those funds back off of the general fund. I just wanted to make sure that the levy was able to support itself with the amounts that were proposed. So I'm more than happy to find more funds and put it into the levy so that it will alleviate that 14.5% that we put onto the general fund, if that is what you want me to do.
I guess ultimately, my concern is that I feel like the fire levy is up for renewal soon.
Yes,
this
next year.
So if that's not a sustainable number, do we need to increase that? I guess there's a number of ways to skin a cat, so how?
I'm only going
Either
from
it has to
numbers
come
of
from the
what's
general
coming
fund, or
in
we have
this
to
year.
increase the levy.
Sorry.
Or reduce our staff. I mean, something has to happen, right? I don't know what that is, what that looks like.
Madam President,
Mr. Wilson.
so I got a question here. And my question is, funding sources for the fire department is what? The levy, general fund, what are the funding sources for
Fire
the fire
Equipment
department?
Fund.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
EMS billing.
Right. So there's 3 sources of funding for the fire department, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the levy can't sustain their.
So
I think there needs to be more investigation.
let me answer that question. You do bring up a good point. I will tell you what the EMS brought in to, let's see. It's at the back of your packet. If you'll turn to the very last page, there were 2 deposits from Hamilton County for the EMS. First half was the 800,000, and the second half was the 745,000. So when I'm giving you numbers, it's strictly based upon the levy, which is what this 302 fund is supposed to be supporting. So we didn't take into consideration any other funds other than what the levy was supporting. Fire
Ms. Anderson,
EMS.
I have a question about
Mm-hmm.
this revenue sheet that you just mentioned. It says fire/EMS. Is that the fire levy and EMS all rolled into one?
So
Because
this-
the EMS wouldn't come from Hamilton County.
So no, this isn't the levy or the levy, let's see. So I inherited this the way that it is. It does say EMS net payment, but not quite sure if that's the EMS payments. I don't think that it is. Because
That's not that. The
EMS
EMS,
goes into the 211 fund.
the
So
211
that
fund comes from our billing company, our EMS billing company, not from Hamilton County.
Right. So actually, that can come off. Fire/EMS is not something that I actually put on there.
So we feel like that's really just the fire levy?
Correct.
Okay.
But those dollar amounts did come from Hamilton County website itself. And they are actually the funds that are certified as having been deposited. So fire/EMS, I don't know why it's labeled that way.
But, Madam President,
Mr. Wilson?
but just for clarification, but that is the EMS funding, right?
No, that is the levy. the
Levy,
fire-
okay.
The levy.
Okay, got you. So,
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. That is actually the Hamilton County real estate. So that's the first and second half of the real estate taxes that we get from Hamilton County.
okay,
I do apologize. I got a little bit
yes.
mixed up on that. The fire levy is the $1.5 million that's listed underneath there. This is from Hamilton County. This is the second half of the real estate.
This is real estate.
Yes, that's
So-
what that is. And we also get it for the general fund. We get it for the streets department. We get it for the senior center. We get it for the police department. So that's what those are.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Wilson?
So my question is that the EMS revenue, do we have a number on that?
I actually printed year-to-date revenue report here, and I can give you that number. Year-to-date, $567,126.47.
Could you repeat that one more time? I got 567, 126.
126.47.
Thank you.
I think I got it.
Ms. Anderson, are you able to send us a revenue
Absolutely.
sheet so that we know what all of the revenue is for the city?
Sure.
Because honestly, all we have is what we're trying to spend
this
out. We
is
don't
the-
even know what we
Right.
have coming in.
This is the actual report. I'm sorry, could you repeat what you said?
I said, without that revenue document, we don't even know what's coming in order to know what we can spend.
Okay. I think that's the importance of having the budget, but you also do have the tax budget. The 2025 tax budget is what gives you the certificate of resources. And that was filed in July.
Okay.
That's what you passed.
Madam Chair, I just have a kind of a procedural question because I feel like we're all a little tense, but I just want to make sure, as you know, I'm not a numbers person. That's why I went to law school. So just so that I understand, it's actually the job of the city administrator to do the budget and then
To present the budget.
Right, but then because of what has occurred, you graciously have agreed to help us with this.
Correct.
Okay. So, thank you very much.
Madam
So,
Chair.
so to be clear, so you have put together this document?
No, Madam Chair, we did work together.
Okay.
I depended on Ms. Anderson to put in actuals, review the numbers. We did. We met, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to go over some numbers. Not some, but to go over the numbers. I relied on her to tell me the conversations that she had. I did send out an email to the department heads, but some of them were on vacation, weren't available, stating that I would reach out to them. With time, I was unable to. I did have a couple of conversations, but together we did sit down to go over, and I relied on Ms. Anderson to be able to tell me the actuals and the conversations that she did have with the department heads.
So this document is a product of yours and hers together?
Yes.
Thank you. And that's no other input other than from the department heads?
Correct.
Thank you.
So that's why you will see some of them, they changed. Even when we talked, so what I looked at trends. I looked at over the years what was spent. And so I would even ask her, when Interim Chief Cheney was here, well, what is that for? Why is it for this dollar amount? Council needs to approve whether or not they're going to have a new employee. So that's why some of them went down. We talked a little bit about percentages as to why, but really just trying to look at the trends. Whether if you spent $300 in 2025 and 2021, why is there 8,000 over here? And when you spent 600 in 2024. So not knowing, with the police, I said to Ms. Anderson, in defense of Chief Cheney, there probably were some things that maybe he didn't know that needed to be spent or done that that Chief Schran had initialized or spent and budgeted for. So we took that into account. That's why a lot of his numbers didn't change, because if he wasn't aware that this needed to take place, this needs to be ordered, then why would we move it if it's based off of the trend?
So we're still in the general fund for the part-time firefighters. And I'm sorry for any confusion, but when we're talking about the general fund for the firefighters, I am referring to the part-time firefighters. And the fact that there is an amount that comes over from the levy to support the salaries of 15.5%. So if we're okay with that, I'll move on.
So then I'm not following again, because now you're saying that the full-time people from the levy are moving into general fund, but yet there's no full-time number in here.
It's in the number on the part-time line, and I can
So
separate.
you have the part-time and full-time.
Yes, they're together, but what I can
mixed.
do for 2025, it hadn't been done for 2024, but I can separate that 14.5% out and put it onto the full-time line if you'd like.
I
had
very
been-
much would like to
yeah.
see that, because I think that's going to help feed our levy discussion.
Okay, well, okay. Simply because it hadn't been done since 2023, but I'm more than happy to put it on a line for, a separate line item for 2025.
Please. So I have another question, like in that general vicinity, is we're not planning any overtime at all? And I know we don't like to schedule, we don't like to plan overtime, but clearly it happens because we've spent $120,000 this year on it.
Yeah, so we're still talking about the general fund, and
Yes, we are.
the general fund is primarily, for the way I understand it, for the part-timers. And
Except for the 14%.
Except for the 14%, correct.
So those 14% of people can't work overtime.
No, 14% of the salaries on the salary line. So there is an overtime line. There should be an overtime line in the 302. Let me just double check.
There's no money in it.
It wasn't proposed, so I did not, I can't predict overtime.
Okay.
Well, I'll also say that there's some numbers that were on my proposal that did not make it onto this spreadsheet.
Do you mind clarifying which numbers are not on the spreadsheet?
So let me see here. Building repair and maintenance, I know we're getting ahead of here. In the 211 fund of $25,757.53 was not added onto this spreadsheet. Then there is operating expenses.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that dollar amount again so I can write it? Right.
$25,757.53.
It's on building and repair,
Building repair and maintenance,
25,000.
$757.53.
Okay,
And then operating expenses, there should have been $38,324.70.
okay.
I'm sorry, Chief, what line did you say?
That was for operating expenses out of the 211 fund.
Okay.
Can you repeat that number again? I'm sorry.
$38,324.70.
Thank you.
Madam President, what fund was that?
That was the
Or
operating
number?
expense.
What was that building repair and maintenance number again?
524201.
Sorry.
That was operating expenses.
102
Madam President.
24201.
Mr. Wilson.
You're under the
Yes,
fire
I'd like to
equipment
make a
fund.
motion for a 5-minute break.
Madam President.
Ms. Underwood.
I'll second his motion.
I have a motion on the floor to take a 5-minute break from Mr. Wilson and a second from Ms. Underwood. A roll call. Ms. Zorb, yes. Sorry, Ms. Gaston.
Yes.
Ms. Chichester.
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Alexander. Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Ms. Underwood.
If you don't hit that yet.
Yes.
Putting off your 5 minutes.
We got 5.
All right. Motion passes. Sorry, I want to be on the 5 minutes. Just now. All right. Our 5 minutes is up. We are back in. I'm sorry, Chief Plackey, I think some of council got confused about some of the numbers, and me being one. Would you care to review those? I think you gave us 3 different ones that you were just,
It was 2. I mean, I got a little ahead here into the fire equipment fund, so we can pause on that and go back to the general fund. I don't want to
Okay.
get too far ahead. We can finish out the general fund.
okay,
That way, I don't want to create any more confusion.
perfect. Hey, thank you. I know I appreciate that.
And so, unless there are any questions.
Ms. Anderson, can I get you to speak into the microphone, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there are any questions, the other amounts are, again, attributed to the Medicare, which carries a percentage, and workers' comp, which is a monthly bill.
Ms. Anderson, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
I have a question. It's common knowledge now that former Chief Fells was paid as a contractor, and I believe there were 2 90-day contracts for that. Can you tell me where those are listed in here? Because typically when we hire contractors, we have a line item that's called professional services, and I do not see one of those, so I'm curious where he was paid for that.
Madam Chair, there was only one contract. There were not 2 contracts signed.
Okay? I'm repeating what he himself posted on Facebook. Again, governed by Facebook.
I wish I
So,
could.
but can I know where that was paid from, please?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you from memory. A lot of the fund line items, if I don't pull up a report to tell you how exactly it was paid, I don't have that committed to my memory. However, you are correct that he should have been paid out of professional or contracted services line within the fire department.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Chichester?
can you repeat your statement? I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Where was what posted? Where? I'm sorry.
Chief Fells,
Mm-hmm,
former Chief Fells,
mm-hmm.
came back and was working in the city as a contractor. I was curious where that line item is, where that's accounted for in the budget.
That would have to be another follow-up.
Thank you.
I showed here coming out of the 101 salary part-time fire.
I don't think that should come out of there because that's, I mean, there's OPERS and workers'
So
comp
I
and
think that he
everything else.
previously was being paid out of that, and so it could be by default, I'm not sure.
But you will follow up on that and let us
I
know
will.
for sure?
Yes, I will.
Thank you so much. Can we get back to the overtime conversation? Chief Blackie, do you anticipate overtime?
Yes.
Do you
And
have
if you wanted to
a
put that
rough number?
proposal in there.
Number?
Yeah.
I apologize. I thought that I did put it in there. I don't think it made it in there, but I will follow up on that and get an accurate number. I do have a question, though. In the 101 general fund for the fire department, it says OPERS Fire, and there's a $122,963.45 listed as OPERS. The part-time fire do not pay into any retirement system. That hasn't been that way since, I believe, 1994. So I'm worried that that 2024 actual is kind of skewing these numbers a little bit.
That's true. They should not be paying in OPERS.
Mm-hmm.
I will look into that as well. Thank you.
I do have one more for that, the 101 account. It looks like another 2024 actual for operating expenses for $1,599.73. I don't think that's accurate either because our operating expenses should come out of the 211 Fire Equipment Fund.
If you'll allow me to follow up on that.
Are there any other questions for the fire in the general fund?
I know, okay.
It won't bite you.
Madam President, Chief,
Underwood?
I'm fairly certain that this question is completely wrong or wrongly asked. I'm going to ask you anyway, though. Like for the fire levy, like how do we know if the fire levy is sufficient at its current levels to, or is it sufficient at its current levels to support the fire department? And when will we know that?
We could call the Hamilton County Auditor and see what the status of that levy is, how much money is brought in, and how much money is sitting in that fund. I requested that information previously, quite a while ago, and never got it back. Not from the auditor, but from the finance department here.
Okay, and so we're not sure what what that money is, or what's in that fund, or,
I don't want to give you a number because I want to have an accurate number for you.
okay, fair enough. And so the county doesn't report that directly to you?
Right.
Right. I would have to go look it up myself.
You, Madam
Okay.
President,
Madam,
Mr. Wilson. I'm sorry.
can you?
Wait, hang on. Ms. Underwood, are you finished? You still,
I'm just trying to make sure I understand,
I
kind
can
of.
see the gears still moving, so
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to give you a minute.
Okay, well, I'll defer, and then I'll come back if I need to.
Mr. Wilson?
Thank you.
Yes, Chief. Could you repeat your answer?
Answer to what?
The last answer you just said.
So when I started working on the budget, I asked for reports for fund levels for the fire equipment fund and the fire levy, which I never received.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Madam President.
Mr. Wilson?
Okay, so you was working on your department budget, and you didn't get the information you needed to fulfill the budget.
That's correct.
So why didn't you get the information that you needed to fulfill the budget?
Because it wasn't given to me.
I'm sorry. Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Wilson?
So it wasn't given to you. How did you not have that information when that's what you needed to fulfill your budget?
I requested it and I did not get it. And I went off of historical budget numbers within the fire department to get a ballpark number.
So who did you submit your request to, sir?
The finance department and Miss Chamberlain.
Oh. Yeah, that answers it all.
Madam President,
I'd like to make another clarifying comment. Chief Plackey, could you not just look in the system and get the numbers yourself?
I don't know how to access that. I mean, I just recently got access to the general fund account for the fire department within the last couple of weeks.
Madam
You didn't have
President,
access to it either.
No.
Madam President,
Thank you.
that's just been since the new software. New software just was updated. Prior to that, he has had all access to all funds and all accounts for and
I did not.
not just his department. All departments had access to all funds.
That's not true.
It's not until the software was updated that the departments were restricted to just their department.
Madam President.
But it sounds like he didn't even just have his department. He didn't have the general fund.
I did not receive a request for anything from him.
Let me see here because I have a screenshot. Stand by. On October 17th, Ms. Anderson, you wrote, Joe, you won't be able to view the general fund activity. Initially, the general fund was set up for part-time firefighters' salaries. However, full-time firefighters have also been paid incorrectly. This is now rectified. The general fund is now being used according to budget ordinance only for part-time firefighter salaries.
Again, that was after the software had been updated.
Madam President,
Chichester?
in the spirit of moving on and rectifying situations,
I was
we
just about to say
understand
that.
our city is at a transition. And in order to move forward and resolve any unanswered questions, can we just give him the information he needs? He has requested that he need the status of the fund from the auditor. Let's give him the information he needs.
Is it, can I understand, is it the auditor's information and not the software information that he's asking for?
Mr. Plackey,
Yes,
Madam
I believe he
President,
needs both.
what is your ask, sir?
it would be nice to have both so that I could compare what's in the system versus what the auditor is recording. Yes.
So, I would suggest, let's give him this information. And by our next budget and finance meeting, let's have his budget amended. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
And that way, everyone can get what they need to fulfill his budget for his department, because it's unfair if he didn't have his resources for him to have a budget to move forward.
Madam Chair.
Madam
I
Chair.
believe Ms. Underwood was first.
And I am about language, so I'm not hearing everybody saying the same thing. I hear you're asking for information, and I heard him ask for access to information. So may I request that he has access to all of the information that he needs to complete his budget, pretty please?
Would you mind verifying with him that he does have access to the general fund for the fire department? He does have it.
It's, okay, so what access do you need, Chief?
Yes, I do have access to the general fund account now.
What access do you need?
I don't need access. I need reports
Okay.
from like the auditor on how much the fire levy is bringing in, how much is there, how much the fire equipment has in it.
Where does that information come from?
I can get that. I can go through Medi-Account management and get the exact number of what we're, the projections that we're supposed to have.
Is there somewhere in the city that you can click on a button and get that information?
Madam Chair.
Hang on, I want her to finish.
So what do you mean by somewhere in the city?
Like,
Like
is there
in the
some
city system?
software, right, is there some software that we own that you, like, you can get the information that you need from that software? That's my question for you.
As far as the Medi-Account stuff, no. I'd have to contact them directly, but there's also, I mean, I've ran reports for the last few weeks, and there's so many inconsistencies in the reports that I'm running. There's hundreds of errors in here. I mean, there's, like this one, it still showed today that we're still projected to spend 1.4 million out of the general fund.
Right, okay, so, all right, so how can we fix it? How can we help you?
Like, I don't even know how we can put a budget together because all these clerical errors in our system. I mean, I don't feel confident in any of the numbers that are sitting in front of me.
Okay, so,
Madam Chair, when is that report from, Chief Plackey, that you're referring to? What's
This
the
one?
date? Mhm.
This is from Authority Finance.
No, the date. When was that run?
This is ran on November 15th.
Okay.
But this is the one that we went through and marked all of the inconsistencies and errors, things that were not supposed to be where they are. And yeah, they haven't been fixed. I mean, not even some of them. So I don't even, like, it was very difficult putting together a budget, not knowing exactly what you have or what. I mean, there's so many things that have been moved around that I can't even, it would take me weeks to figure out. Well, they did. We went through it and found out like where these things should be and marked them.
Madam Chair.
Are you finished?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Chichester?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I have a question. What is the process for procedure for him to get what he needs to run a report? Is it,
I can run reports. It's the accuracy of those reports that's the question.
so my question is procedure and protocol. Is it up to you? Is that up to you where you should be getting that? Or is it the job of the finance director or city administrator to give you those reports? That's my question. Like, what's the normal process and procedure for that information given to him?
Madam Chair, since the software has changed, I understand that there are some places that they cannot pull from. Like, they
Okay.
can't see other departments.
Okay, makes
They
sense.
can only see their own departments. We did have a conversation, 2 weeks ago, where they could, I believe you should be able to pull some reports now that you couldn't in the past, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I could pull reports from the beginning when I had access to the system, but for only the 211 and the 302, I had no access to the 101,
Is it, Madam
Which
Chair?
is,
which is the general fund.
But yet you're
So-
responsible for maintaining that budget.
Correct.
Responsible for maintaining what budget?
That 101 budget, the general fund.
General fund.
so that 101 budget houses other departments as well.
Yes.
So
He wouldn't be able to see that.
that's where the issue falls. So
Correct.
when you look into the 101 as fire, you see police, you see recreation, you see everybody, what everybody is spending. She can run a report, but the idea is, why would I look in your bank? I'm gonna say bank account. Why would I look in your bank account? So the 101, fire, police, recreation, so it's all the same 101. So
Madam-
do we
Madam
need
Chair.
to change and call it
If I can
101
clarify.
point something, yeah.
If I can clarify, the general fund, which is labeled 101, when it was brought to my attention, now, he did read from you a screenshot that I did send to him. I was referring to the entire 101 general fund. When it was brought to my attention that his department, for the fire department, he did not have access in the 101, is when I went in and gave him the access to it. I was not saying that he could not see the fire department's general fund. I was making a blanket statement that you would not be able to see the general fund, the overall general fund. Now, when it was brought to like I said, when it was brought to my attention that he didn't have access to even his 101, each department should be able to see their own general fund, but not everyone's general fund. So it was an oversight on my part that he did not have access to his general fund for the fire department.
Madam
Simply an oversight.
As a point of clarity, though, I believe he was only looking for view rights. And as a standard point, I mean, this is a public record.
I was just about to say
I mean, this is,
Correct.
I am sorry that I thought the same thing you did.
that. Oh, my gosh, it's terrible. Okay.
So saying that recreation can't see fire, to me,
That is not how this.
Jane Citizen could ask for a report and see everyone's.
That is not how this finance software is set up. It is set up so that each department can see their own funds.
Okay. so-
Madam
I'm
President.
Chair.
I'm going back to my point, though. This is all public records. And there's no reason why there can't be cross-viewing access.
There is no cross-viewing access. This is
Madam
my
President.
understanding of the software.
I would question that.
Madam President.
Ms. Underwood, did you have something else you wanted to add to my thought?
I do, actually. And I'm sorry, I promise I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time. So love is coming from over here, except for the fact that I haven't had dinner. Just that. So is there any way that you can allow just the 3 main department heads? So I'm talking about like, 4, who's the 4th?
There's rec, there's
No.
public works.
I'm talking about Public Works and Fire and Police. Those 3, to be able to see, not amend or change, but just see the entire everything. Is there any way we can allow them to just be able to see everything? That way they can, I don't know, because I don't know what their
So-
process is.
In the previous software, which was antiquated, it's from 1995, the way when it was explained to me when we upgraded, that was the process. They were able to see everyone's funds, across funds. But that is not the way that it is set up in the new software since we've upgraded.
Okay, so I'm going to follow that up with a question. And again, I'm not giving anybody a hard time. I know I'm just, you can see everything, right?
Correct.
How come he can't see everything?
Because his access is restricted to just his
Fire department.
just the fire
Okay.
department.
Is there any way we can give him and police and Public Works the ability to see everything?
I don't know that that would be a best practice. It is not the way that the software is set up, and that's for a reason.
Okay.
You don't want department heads, and I know what you said, view only, but you don't want department heads accessing other departments in the finance software.
Well, I don't know. I don't understand. Just help me understand. I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
That ain't it.
That's just the way that the software is set up. Now, what I can do is I can follow up with the person that we set up the software with. We do have a dedicated representative
Okay.
who can give clarity, who can give clarity to the way that the software is
Okay,
set
well,
up.
okay, yes, I would like to ask that person some questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam President.
I believe Mr. Wilson was next.
Yep.
So, what I would like to know is, Chief, you wasn't able to complete your budget because you wasn't able to see the other departments' overhead?
No, he wasn't
No.
allowed to see his own.
The general.
Okay, so when you gain access to your department, what was the holdup for you completing a budget for your department since once you gain access to your department?
I originally didn't have access to the general fund, therefore I could not
So,
report accurate numbers. So that slowed me down.
okay, so why is the general fund a big part of your budget?
Because it's one of the 3 buckets that we pull money from for our annual budget.
All right, so you didn't know how much your department had left in the general funds
I couldn't see
for
anything.
your department, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that was the holdup. It was just because you couldn't see what was in the general fund for fire.
Correct.
Okay.
Madam President.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick side note. So could Chief Cheney see his police general fund
Absolutely.
the whole time or just recently?
Yes, he could see his, I believe he can see his general fund.
He's not here.
I know, he's not here. I should have, I didn't know.
Well, he also submitted a
All right,
completed budget.
Ms. Chichester?
Yes. So, we're all in alignment that he can see what he needs now, correct, sir?
Yeah, I can see I have access to it. Whether it's accurate or not is another question.
What's your question on the accuracy of the reports?
I show in the general fund that the fire department's going to spend $1.4 million for part-time salaries when we were only allocated
Mi-
615.
May I please address that?
Yes, please.
In the meeting that I had with Interim Chief Cheney, Plackey, and Ms. Chamberlain, it was discovered that Paycor was listing the funds correctly on pay stubs, on pay statements. Somehow, the funds got switched when it came to the general ledger. The general ledger is what we use after each pay run to enter into the finance software. So the general ledger was showing the general fund, and we were expensing the general fund because it's what showed on the ledger. However, it wasn't apparent to firefighters or to even my department because on the paycheck stubs themselves, it was listed correctly. So once it was discovered that that was being done, again, everything is fixable. So I did bring this to their attention, and Ms. Chamberlain was made aware of it at the same time as Chief Plackey. Some things are inherited the way they had been being done in my department, and some things had to be pointed out to us. We simply requested the opportunity to be able to address them. bring them to our attention so that we can make the corrections. I am aware of a spreadsheet that he is referring to right now that was given to me. Whatever date he said it was given to me. However, those corrections are in the process of being completed. Again, it didn't come to me directly. It came to Ms. Chamberlain, then it went to Mr. Dieters, and then it came to me.
Madam
So-
Chair.
oh, wait.
Sorry,
Sorry.
I'll go after Ms. Chichester, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was waiting to ask my final question because it was two-part. What's the best practice for,
We just simply need time. We just need time to straighten these things out.
so,
I'd like to point out, though, that the year's coming to an end. I mean,
Yes, and we're running into the cleanup ordinance, as a matter of fact. So all of these things will be straightened out. If it hadn't been pointed out, it would have gotten corrected. Because the cleanup ordinance, together with the appropriations ordinance, is something that we're working on at the very end of the year, so that we don't go into the beginning of the year in the red. Funds being attributed to the wrong fund, now that's a different story. We don't want to see them go negative, but we also want to see them land in the right fund. So, again, once it's brought to our attention, we can make those adjustments in the software.
Do you have an estimated time that those corrections will be made?
It's a line-by-line item, and there are some, I would say, recommendations on that he says are incorrect that are correct. So I have to actually go through what he's saying is incorrect to actually make sure that they are incorrect. There are some notes that he's saying, move this from 211 to the general fund. Well, I have to make sure that that is, in fact, what is supposed to occur. Maybe it's supposed to come out of the 211. Or is it supposed to come out of the general fund? These are things that I still have to sort through.
Okay, so do you have any type of estimate when those will be complete? And I say that again because the end of the year is coming.
They have to be complete before the end of the year.
And council has a cleanup that we would
Correct.
have to pass before the end of the year, and I know. Yep, I'm looking at you.
look at me too.
That whole special meeting thing is, at the end of the year is dicey. So, I'm just gonna say it, we need it sooner than later.
Understood, and I agree.
So can we just come up with a time? Let's just make up a date and say it's gonna be finished by
When's the next budget and finance meeting?
the 9th of December is what it's on the calendar for.
And then what's the next council meeting after that?
I don't think that's
The
a good
16th?
idea. I don't like that idea, Madam President.
Well,
I mean, I agree that we
we need something.
we need, but at the same time, we're talking about people, and just, we all want to get along, because, you know, we actually all do get along. I know that there have been some kind of miscues or whatever, but we do get along. We work well together. So, but I don't want to say this has to be done by the 9th, because, I mean, anything could happen. All kinds of, you know, things. There are a lot of moving parts, and I just want to make sure. So, can we just agree not to try to drag me in here the day after Christmas? Can we just?
The first thing, that is
No
your
promises.
Christmas gift.
Madam President?
I do have another question, though.
Oh, go ahead.
Actually, I
Go
think,
ahead.
I think Mr. Wilson was in queue. No? Sorry.
No, he asked this question,
All right.
which is the same question you asked before, but okay.
All right, Ms. Underwood.
So in the spirit that we are trying to fix the charter, and I use the word fix, what would you suggest the way that we do the budget? Because we had some city manager mishaps here.
I'm so glad you asked that question.
I would like to, I'm very careful. we had some city manager mishaps. That's the word I'm using. It's not the word I want to use, but that's the word I'm using. What do you suggest we do when it comes to the budget? Because what we're doing is not working.
Thank you for
Madam
that
President.
question.
I think she said best practices. What do you think we should do?
I would like to answer that. What, go
I
ahead.
think she's asking her opinion.
Okay.
So, two things that I think should occur, maybe three. So, the first and most important thing is that there needs to be quarterly reports of the revenue and the expenditures. What this does is it gives us an opportunity to look for anomalies. There shouldn't be more than a 1% difference between what is actually in the software and what we actually budgeted. That would equate to about $500,000 per fund. So if I'm giving you a report quarterly, this prevents us from getting where we are right now, because you're able to see, and I can report in terms of either dollars, actual dollars, or percentages, where we are, it's like a snapshot of where we are at the quarter of the year. That's number one. Of course, I did start late. However, the budget process itself shouldn't start after June, so that needs to begin sooner in the year. That way, again, we're able to work through all of the issues, all of the line items, before it gets to you. We're able to meet with department heads and make sure that we're on par with where we are, and that can be from a percentage point as well. Typically, by June, you should see 50% of the budget has been expended. Then we also talked about quarterly appropriations. So there should be an amount of monies, if I see that we're getting dangerously close in a fund line or a fund itself, I'm able to, without going to council, I'm able to transfer intra-fund, but not across funds. So that needs to occur. Lastly, there are recommended policies that are out there. They're recommended by the ICMA, and I'll give you just a few. There should be a policy on reserves. You want to see 5 to 15% of the revenue, operating revenue, in reserves, and 1 to 2 months of the operating expenses in reserve. There should be a policy, a debt policy, a policy on the structurally balanced budget, a policy on long-term financial planning, and a policy on budget transfer, which I believe, budget transfer of unencumbered funds, which I believe you call your cleanup. So there needs to be those policies in place.
So I'm fairly confident we do have a policy on reserves and on the debt policy.
Okay.
I remember working on them. Sorry. And Ms. Underwood, I'd also, I'm piggybacking on what you asked. I heard a lot of we's in there. Could you please define the we's that?
We would be me, because I haven't spoken with anyone on these are my notes. And when I say we, I mean.
Ideal state,
Yeah,
are you saying we?
as a city, or as my recommendation?
Your
It'd be either
recommendation?
or,
Are you
yeah.
saying you should do all of this
Absolutely.
without any other input?
Absolutely. This
from-
falls on the finance department.
Okay, because the charter clearly states that the city administrator
Right.
should put the budget together.
Madam
Okay,
President,
okay.
Yes, Ms. Chichester.
I think her recommendation was that we need to start on the budget sooner, as a whole.
Right, but she said we need to start, so I wanted to know who the "we" was in her statement. That's all. I was just looking for clarity.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I like to know who the we is too, because we didn't have no conversation about the recreation budget. It just came out.
Madam President.
I don't disagree. Yes, Ms. Chichester?
Looking at the time frame, I wanted to make sure Chief Plackey has what he needs to make the amendments he needs.
I do have one question. In the 211 fund, it shows a 2024 actual amount for hydrant repair and maintenance. The amount of $76,000. Some change like that. Where was that number?
These are reports that's coming straight from this finance software.
Because from the finance software.
Yes. The same reports you're able to pull?
Yeah. According to this report, for hydrant maintenance, we've only spent $437.19.
Could you say that number again? 437?
$437.19.
Thank you.
For 2024?
Yes.
Is hydrant,
And actually, there's some of that, so really it should be, because there's two expenses that should be moved to another location for building repairs and maintenance. So
Actually,
really, it should be $223.50.
That's the exact number that's on training and education.
Yeah.
That
Right. I believe that-
437.19.
19.
yeah, they've been juxtaposed maybe?
Madam President.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of corrections that need to be made on this. So let's put a pause in this discussion.
Madam President, I was going to say, there's a lot of discrepancies. Is it even worth going through the rest of these
Be up all night.
with the discrepancies? That's what my Madam President was about to be.
Chief Plackey, are you okay if we put a pause on your budget discussion?
Absolutely.
Until some of this can be looked into / rectified /
Amended.
corrected,
What I can do is
whatever.
double check the software to make sure that, I do know that the software has been duplicating some items, and we have a call ticket into IT on that, so you'll allow me to come back with more accurate numbers. It's okay if, I have two sets of eyes. I'm not opposed to having two sets of eyes look at these and go through and make sure that they're all lining up on the right line, and they're all on the right lines, so.
All right.
And
Madam President,
Ms. Alexander.
I make a motion that we adjourn for the evening. What time is it?
Madam President.
Madam President.
9:01.
9:01.
Madam President.
Oh,
Yeah.
discussion.
Yes, discussion. We still have like other department heads here that have been waiting.
I already discussed with her that we weren't not going to get to recreation tonight. She
Yeah.
knew that,
Okay,
right?
just wanted to make sure.
We're going to pick it up at a future date, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
100%. 100%. Hello?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to answer.
I didn't hear you. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Well, I would like to second that.
Mr. Wilson, all right.
Time is it?
91. All right, I have a motion on the floor from Ms. Alexander and a second from Mr. Wilson to adjourn tonight's meeting. Roll call, Zorb, yes. Gaston,
Yes.
Chichester,
Yes.
Alexander,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Davis,
yes.
Underwood.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. You know what we didn't do?
What?
Schedule the next one.
What?
The next
Next
Does it
budget.
have to be a meeting of the whole, another meeting of the whole?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it does.